SQL Create Table Statement with example syntax. SQL is one of the most reliable and straightforward querying languages around. It provides clear-cut syntax that reads easily without abstracting away too much of the functionality's meaning. If you'd like some history on the language as well as some interesting facts, check out the introduction portion of my SQL Update Statement article. In this article, we're going to go through the important parts of creating a table in SQL. My preferred flavor of SQL is SQL Server, but the information about creating a table is fairly ubiquitous across all SQL variations. If you've never used SQL or don't know what a table is, fear not. Briefly and broadly, a table is a database object that holds, or contains, all of the data within that portion of the database. It stores this data in named columns and numbered rows, which is not unfamiliar if you've ever used any spreadsheet program. Each row represents a whole database record. If data were in box form, then a table would be a section of the warehouse shelving we store those boxes in. I'm simplifying the explanation greatly, and there is much more to SQL tables, but that's outside the scope of this article. If you're itching for a more in-depth explanation on tables, I encourage you to dive into the Microsoft Database Design documentation. Before we learn how to create the table, it's important that we learn what types of data these columns and rows can store. When creating our table, we designate the type of data its rows and columns will hold. Here are the overarching classifications of data. I'll list some of the more commonly used data types below. But if you'd like a more on all data types, I invite you to check out this exhaustive article on each type from Microsoft. Float size. D, a number with total number size represented by size and the number of characters after the decimal represented by the D. Alright, now that we know what types of data the rows and columns can contain, let's get into the fun parts. Before we start, it's important to note that I'll be providing all of my examples independent of any program. However, if you'd like to start writing queries and you aren't sure where to start, take a look at SQL Server Management Studio. It's a free, robust program that's widely used and supported in the community. Alternatively, there are several options including dbfiddle that allow you to build schemas and write queries right in your browser. Column 5 Name data type. There are other parameters we can add after the data type to augment the columns. Unique key. Passing this parameter will designate that column as a unique identifier. It is essentially a combination of the previous two parameters. Now, we're going to create a table named Doggo Info, which must adhere to the identifier standards for databases to hold information on the residents of Woof Woof Retreat. A fictional doggy daycare. I just thought of smiley face. You'll notice that our table is completely empty, and this is because we haven't added any data to it yet. Doing so is beyond the scope of this article, but I wanted you to be aware of that tidbit. It's pretty easy and doesn't require that much more syntax. We need to select the table and columns to copy from where conditions exist, so expediencies sake. I've added some data to our Doggo Info table and it now looks like the example below. Now we can create another table based off of the data we have in our Doggo Info table by running the query below. Where age less than 4, we want to create a new table with all of the columns from the Doggo Info table, but only where the age is less than 4. After running this query, our new table will look like this. I hope you can see just how powerful this statement can be. With a few lines in our query, we have essentially copied data from one table into another, but only the rows that we wanted. This is not only a handy tool to have in your developer tool belt, it'll save you untold amounts of time when you need to move data around tables. Now that you know how to create, or copy, a table in SQL, no matter what situation you're presented with, you can start filling the columns and rows with data to store. The create table statement is extremely useful and powerful. You're ready to start putting it to good use. If you found this article helpful, check out my blog where I frequently post articles about web development, life, and learning. While you're there, why not sign up for my newsletter? You can do that at the top right of the main blog page. I like to send out interesting articles, mine and others, resources, and tools for developers every now and then. If you have questions about this article or just in general, let me know. Come say hi on Twitter or any of my other social media accounts, which you can find below the newsletter. Sign up on the main page of my blog or on my profile here at FCC Smiley Face. Self-taught developer looking to share knowledge, experience, and cute animal pictures with the world. Check out my blog at Learn to Code for Free. FreeCodeCamp's open source curriculum has helped more than 40,000 people get jobs as text source. freecodecamp.org